Hello, everyone, and welcome to hashtag SA Wine Lockdown. I am joined today by Davet from Nielshof, as well as Salome from Lausanne Wines. Hi, guys. How's it going?
It's going good. It's good to be here.
Great.
Yeah,
And
thanks for
Davet,
being
welcome.
here.
Tell us a little bit about your career in wine and what got you involved in the wine industry.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. It's great to be here. So I grew up on a wine farm in Worcester area. So my parents has always been involved in the wine industry, and I guess that played a big part in my interest in wine. And I went to Stellenbosch, studied winemaking. Eventually, I studied for 7 years, but eventually I decided what I wanted to do. And yeah, after my studies, I started working in Wellington at Waarmakersvallei Cooperative. I went over to California for 2 crushes over there, and in 2003, I joined Nielshof, and I've been here ever since. So I guess I'm part of the furniture now. It's been a wonderful 17 years, and still enjoying every moment.
Wow, can you imagine? Hey, 17 years. That's quite a long time to be at an estate. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Salome, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm not quite that long in the industry, about 11 years now. Studied at Alstenburg in '08. I wasn't fortunate enough to grow up on a farm or inherit one, but I did get to marry a vineyard farmer, and these days he's a tomato farmer. So yeah, we started our journey together at Sorensburg in 2008, had the harvest there. And then for 2 years, I worked at Ormond in Darling, just in the vineyards, because I always believed that everything starts in the vineyards. And then, yeah, from there, we came to Bonnievale. I didn't really had a plan. My husband had an opportunity to start out here on a farm, and I worked at Arensberg for a harvest, and then we started making wine on the farm that my husband started to work on in Bonnievale, Doornbos farm. So that was in 2013. We made 2 barrels of Shiraz, very primitive, and then from there we grew, and now, yeah, can't believe it's almost 7 years later. So we had a few trial and errors before we launched the brand only in 2017. And in that period, we got to plant what we really believed would work here. And funny enough, that is Bordeaux cultivars, more for Bonnievale area than Robertson. So yes, that's why Carmenere is my claim to fame, my love, my passion.
Yeah, and you say only 11 years, but that's already quite long as well. So you can be proud of that too. Now, today we are talking unusual reds, and that's why we have some 2 very special people with us today to explain a little bit more about this unusual red topic. And they've each got their own special red varietal, which they'll take you through. I actually struggled to find anything unusual in my house. I must say I own a lot of blends, and within the blends there are some unusual grapes in there, but it was quite hard to find a single varietal. But I did manage to find one, and it is quite a nice one from KWV. It is the Mentors range, and it is a Cab Franc. And it's a 2017 vintage. And what's special about this wine, it's a great food wine, but in case you didn't know where Cabernet Franc was actually used, it was crossed with Sauvignon Blanc, and that's how they came up with Cabernet Sauvignon. So quite an interesting history on this wine too, and I believe it's quite popular around the world, and we use it quite often in our blends in South Africa, but hardly ever do you see it on its own. So I'm quite excited to try this tonight. And according to Davet, it's a nice food wine. So I'm going to, yeah, I'll have to think about what I'm going to cook this evening. But I'm sure whatever I eat, this wine will taste amazing. Yeah. And Davet, what are you drinking this evening?
Well, I've got my favorite, which is the Nielshof Malbec. This is the 2018 vintage, and I've been. You can't probably see the full level, but I've having a couple of glasses while I'm waiting for you. So I brought another bottle, just a bigger one, in case that one won't do it. So this is a nice 3 liters, so it should be enough for the rest of the evening. But of course, the Malbec is very close to my heart. It's a grape that we started planting in 2003 with the help of Professor Eben Archer, who consulted here in those days, and he had a big love for South America. And he identified one of the slopes on the farm, on the estate, where we should plant the Malbec. And it's really been a success story for us. It's a wine that really does well. It's very popular in the tasting room. It's probably not that unusual for wine people, wine connoisseurs, but in terms of South Africans, I think it's a wine that people certainly wasn't too familiar with up until recently. And it's funny enough, it's been the most planted grape, the third most planted grape in South Africa last year, just to give you an indication on how popular Malbec is getting in South Africa. But of course, it's only just one of unusual grapes or varieties that you find nowadays, and I think it's exciting. I think it's good to try different things, because a lot of people just tend to stick to Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, Chardonnay, Cab Sauv, Malbec, and Pinotage, which of course I also like. But it's great to try new things, and I think the diversity of South Africa contributes to what we can achieve with different grapes in this beautiful country of ours.
Yeah, and some really great comments coming through. I see there's a lot of love for Malbec at the moment. And so, Lumi, you've got something very interesting to show us. And will you explain a little bit about your wine that you have?
Yeah, well, this was something that kind of found me, the Cabernet. I got a present in 2012 of a bottle of Cabernet from Chile, and just fell in love with the abundance in fruit and the soft tannins, but it's got also this bit of difference in terms of spice that it's got. So yeah, we took a big risk in 2014 planting a very small parcel on the farm, 0.6 hectares. Only we thought we are going to do it as a test and trial, sort of pick the smallest area we could, and it worked out very well so far. We managed to be the first producers to launch it in 2016. I knew I shouldn't really release a red at the time. It was still a very young block, but I took the chance and did very well with the 100 bottles. And then from there on, we just grew every year. Yeah. So Cabernet is very unfamiliar for South Africa, but actually for the rest of the world. Chile claims it as theirs, about 8,000 hectares in Chile. But it's also originally from Bordeaux, France, and only about 20 hectares left in France at the moment. And in South Africa, roughly 8.5 to 10 hectares. Yeah, there's 4 producers in South Africa at the moment. So it's a very fascinating cultivar to work with, difficult to work with, but in the end product, it's such rewarding to work with it.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting. And tell me, Salumi, why is it so hard to cultivate and to harvest and all of that type of stuff?
Well, we found out the hard way, and now we know why the French didn't really want to replant it. After phylloxera in the 1800s, it's just prone to diseases. It feels drought first in the 2018 period. The tonnage dropped so much. The birds love feasting on it because it's got a very long ripening season. And then very much like the rest of the Bordeaux family cultivars, Merlot and Cabernet Francs, it can also produce a very green component. So you have to really manage it correctly in the vineyards and then in the cellar as well, not to get that over green pyrazines component. But yeah, like I said, if you manage it correctly in the vineyards, little water, it doesn't like too much water, canopy management in summer, leaf plucking before, just with veraison picking its head out. Yeah, then you really get this abundance in fruit, cherries and raspberries. So And the other main factor why it's so difficult to grow really is because there's one clone in the world that we work with. When we look at Shiraz or Pinotage, and I'm not sure about Pinotage, let's go to the more familiar ones, Cabernet Sauvignons, Merlots, Shiraz, then there's quite a few clones and rootstocks you can choose from for your specific site and region. With the Cabernet, there's one clone in the world. So yeah, definitely difficult to work with in any terroir.
Yeah, so quite an intense process that you have to go through to produce your bottles. Yeah, absolutely. Winemaking at its hardest.
Luckily, we didn't know that beforehand. Then we might not have gone this way.
And you seem to be coping quite all right. So thumbs up on that. Okay, so we know, as South Africans, we might not know all the different varietals that would be classified as unusual. And maybe, David, you can talk a little bit about other cultivars that are also quite unusual in South Africa.
Well, I think now it's like I mentioned earlier on, it's on the up. So you get so many different ones, and people are trying different grapes, Tempranillo, Sangiovese, so many more that you can try. But the funny thing is, a lot of them were probably planted earlier on by our parents or our grandparents, and it just didn't catch on to them and wasn't commercially really successful. But a lot of the lesser known varieties like your Grenache and your even your Cinsault, which used to be a very popular grape variety in the old days, are getting back into fashion now. So people are trying and revisiting them again and realizing just the beautiful wines that you can get from them. What I would like to urge you, and maybe this is somebody that you can get onto your show, is get one of the grafters to explain to you what the different grape varieties that you do get out there. And I think of the guys from Bosman in Wellington who really does a lot with these different grape varieties, and they have some mother blocks where they plant and reproduce them, and you can taste the wines. And even at KWV with the VetiTech program, where you can taste the different clones and the different grapes annually. So I mean, there are just so many different grapes out there that we haven't really tried and tested in South Africa. But I would like to stress it again that we have such diverse soil and terroir in this country that we can probably try and plant these grapes on little patches and still be very successful in what we do. And a lot of the smaller guys are doing just that and are very successful. And it's exciting because we need to try new things and new wines from time to time. Especially now, I think a lot of people are going through their wine collections. If you still have wine left after this couple of days, I know a lot of my friends phone me and they ask me, can't we deliver? I said we wish we would. We wanted to deliver. So I think a lot of guys are drinking into the older vintages and trying some of the older stuff. But yeah, it's there are just so many. To answer your question in brief, there are so many different grape varieties that's not that well known. Even Switzerland, which is not regarded as a wine country by us, I think they have more than 50 different grape varieties in Switzerland, just to give you an indication of what is out there. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, and how lucky are we to have such an amazing grafter, as you call it, Bosman, producing all the different types of wines, and how lucky you are as a winemaker to be able to taste all the different ones too.
Definitely, yeah. It's amazing. Again, we have wonderful people, and it's not only them. Of course, there are many different grafters in the country, but we're working in such a beautiful industry with beautiful people that really contribute to this wonderful product that we have and that we can enjoy on a daily basis. So it's nice being in this industry.
Yeah, and thank you, David. So, Lurmi, you obviously, as David mentioned, as he puts it, the smaller guys, I know you're not small, but you do produce quite a limited Yeah, you produce quite a limited amount of your very special wine, and maybe you could tell us a little bit how you went about it. From a bravery point of view, because obviously you're giving up quite a bit of land to plant something that you're not sure will grow in South Africa. Maybe you could just explain to us thinking and the bravery that went through your mind when planting this type of varietal in South Africa.
Well, I think the main thing, well, there's 2 points standing out here for me. I think we can experiment a little bit more because South Africa is really blessed with we really have a good an industry that does research about cultivars and the grafters that the vet also spoke about. So we really do have good material to work with. We understand our terroirs a lot better now, I think, than 20, 30 years ago, maybe. Because remember, as wine industry, we actually still regard it as a young industry. So we've grown a lot in that sense, and I think that's why people are willing to take more risks. All the plant materials, or most of it, is more virus free material as well. So I think from that point onwards, the amount of cultivars grew. But the second point also is to distinguish yourself as a newcomer. And the best way, I believe, to do that is to have something different and something interesting. I definitely was blessed in the sense that I received the bottle as a present. I had no clue that's what's going to hit me. And taking that risk and planting that small block and just realizing in 2016 already, that vintage, I knew, like I said, I shouldn't make red wine. And I said to the owner, let me just make rosé out of it. I need to see what it will give me. And I was blown away by the color, first of all, coming out of that juice and the amount of red fruit. So from that point onwards, I couldn't turn back. I just knew that's what's going to distinguish us and make us different as a newcomer in a very established wine industry amongst bigger guys. So yes, I am small in terms of 40 tons in total. For the Carmenere, roughly about 2 tons a year that I produce, that I work with. So that's very small still. But yeah, you have to grow the market with that as a newcomer.
Yeah, and what an inspiration. And for those that haven't tasted a Cabernet, you pronounce it Cabernet or Cabernet?
Without the last E, I suppose, Carmenere.
Oh, there we go. You say it so lovely, and I struggle a little bit. But it is a rosé, and I've tasted it before. I've been lucky to be able to taste this wine. And maybe you could explain to the people that are watching what it tastes like and what are the I don't know, the key personality of the wine.
Yeah, so for the rosé, definitely I make a little bit of a bolder rosé. Or I suppose that's where it led me in the first place. Very intense in color. It's a darkish pink, even though in the first year I left it for 3 hours, and now I can see actually as the vineyard is growing a little bit older, I can leave the skin contact and make it a little bit less actually. So this year I only did 1 hour of skin contact to break it down a little bit, but intense color for the rosé, bigger in alcohol, but around 13.5, so nothing too intense, but I suppose for rosé that is a mouthful. And then I completely dry fermented, so it's a dry style Cabernet rosé. Loads of cherries, Turkish delight, rose waters coming through, and as it's getting older in the bottle, our Cabernet Rosé is also in the cork bottle, claret shape, because I want the rosé to mature a little bit as well. I think we drink our Sauvignons and rosés too early in South Africa. It's understandable with the heat in the summers, but personally, I like them about 18 months later only. But we did produce, like I said, 100 bottles of red in 2016 as well. And now we're on the 2017 red for the Cabernet, which is, again, the cherries, subtle red berries. But as soon as you add the wood component to that, you get that coffee mocha coming through. So that's what I'm drinking tonight, the Cabernet 2017. And I'm really picking up on that coffee mocha, almost like a cherry cigar coming through.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So if you're a lover of rosé and mocha and a little bit of the cherries, then you should definitely try to buy this wine. And where can they buy the wines, Lumi? On your website?
Yes, definitely online after the lockdown, obviously. And then, yeah, we are in all the smaller niche boutique wine shops in Cape Town, in Joburg, and a few on-cons. But unfortunately not the retailers or the bigger guys. We only produced 2,000 bottles in 2017. Yeah, so small quantity and distributing that cleverly amongst them. So you get the visibility, but also to be able to stock people for a lengthy period before you have to run out. So yeah, all the main boutique shops.
Cool. And I see Alvina's commenting through my wine glass. She has also tasted this one, and she says that she really enjoys the notes of raspberry, cherries, and vanilla. So if you love a rosé, then you should definitely try to get your hands on this wine. It sounds amazing. So De Wet, Malbec, the opposite side of the spectrum, very dark, intense wine. And maybe you can explain to us a little bit about your Malbec that you produce at Neertlingshof.
Yeah, funny enough, it's both the two wines we're talking about tonight is Bordeaux or French wines, but the South Americans really made them famous. Malbec, for those of you that has been to Argentina, is what they drink morning, noon, and night, basically. But I've been, if you compare our Malbec to the typical French style Malbec, the Cahors Malbecs, ours is probably more towards the South American style, which is more accessible. Upfront fruit, a little bit more smokiness, lesser tannins, still dark color and quite concentrated, but not too much tannin, not too dry out. It's really a more accessible wine, enjoyable wine. It also has the notes of smoky character that comes through a bit of mocha, not too much. But what I really enjoy about the wine is the fact that it has beautiful violet character, those herby characters, sometimes a little bit of rosemary, and then some combination of white chocolate, dark chocolate that it finishes with. This is a 2018, so it's made in a not too serious style, but you can still cellar it. You can still keep it for a couple of years. But it's really a wine that you enjoy. It's a wine that you need to have in the kitchen. You need to have a couple of bottles open, and you just pour a glass while you're cooking or while you're having a braai outside and having a nice cut of meat on the braai. And I always say that even, and I know I'm probably jumping to the next question, but I always say that vegetarians can enjoy wine, can enjoy Malbec, because if you just grill your veggies on the grill and you get that smoky character, it really complements the wine. And on that, all our wines are vegan friendly, as is this one. So we try and cater for everyone. The wines are available commercially through some of the retailers, but also from the farmer. As I mentioned, most of the wine we sell online sales and through our wine shop. So it's a very, very popular wine in here at Neertlingshof.
Oh, great. And quite interesting for vegetarians, knowing that you can pair it with something like mushrooms. I would never actually thought of that, but I can imagine how amazing it would taste. And for those that would probably like some meat, what dishes would you explain to go well with a Malbec?
Well, this afternoon in preparation for the show, we cooked the picanha on the braai. That little bit of marble on the one side, and if you cook that and you get caramelization, it really is nice. And if you take fresh rosemary and you just put it onto the hot coals and you get that smoke coming through the meat, it is really well. But seeing that it's also starting to rain outside, a nice oxtail or a stew should really work well. You need a hearty meal with this, but you can also enjoy it just as it is. It's a very versatile wine. most important thing is to have more than one bottle. You need a couple of bottles when you enjoy it.
I must say I agree with that. And I must say, like David, as you were explaining your taste profile of your Malbec, I was actually thinking that my wine tastes almost exactly the same. And I think that's what maybe it's part of the same family. I don't know, but definitely see a beautiful color in my Cab Franc, and it is quite a herbaceous wine, and definitely getting some notes of fynbos and pencil shavings, and then also some dark cherry on the aroma there. And yeah, I can imagine this would also go really well with some creamy mushrooms and spicy creamy mushrooms, and even some roast beef. And I'm trying to think what I'm going to cook this evening that will go lovely with this wine.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're going into, as soon as we get proper rain, we're going into the Puccini or Cep season, which I hope I can still find a couple in my garden, which is a beautiful mushroom, a wild mushroom, if you can get hold of it. Of course, we're not really allowed to go outside, but I've been fortunate to get a couple of them in my garden. So hopefully after the first proper rains, we'll get some. And if you grill that in the pan with a little bit of fresh butter, it's wonderful, beautiful.
Oh, my mouth is absolutely watering. I'm absolutely dying to get hold of some mushrooms, some exotic mushrooms. And Gabby's saying, drink Malbec with dinner whilst you're making dinner and put it in your dinner.
Yeah.
So there you go. Quite a lot of fans for Malbec today. So that's great to hear. And Salome, you're on the other end of the scale here. You've got a very niche varietal. And I wonder what you would pair with that type of wine.
Well, yeah, I was thinking this afternoon, and we've done quite a few wine pairings last year. And if I have to choose my favorite, it must have been it was a duck the one night with a cherry jus, just to complement those notes. So definitely a little bit of a lighter meat. I wouldn't go to chicken, but yeah, just because Carmenere is known for softer tannins. That paired very well. And then on the other spectrum of the scale, a dark chocolate fondant with this Cabernet, beautifully paired. Yeah. So I was thinking about the mushroom ravioli, but now you guys chose it for Malbec. So I'll stick to mine.
Oh dear. But yeah, I can imagine, that type of wine with a beautiful dark chocolate would be absolutely amazing. The strawberries and the cherries with that dark chocolate. I can imagine that pairing would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's like a dog's thing.
Cool. Okay, so for all of you that are watching, thank you so much for your comments. Keep them coming in. I'm going to flick them up on screen now. So we've got one from Gerard, and he is saying, would you consider Grenache as a single varietal as an unusual cultivar? I know Grenache is used in blends.
Grenache, I suppose, in South Africa is maybe seen as a more unusual ones. We would focus more on Shiraz, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, those three. So, but it is definitely part of the Rhone style blends. And I think, like we spoke earlier days, people might have used it in a Shiraz blend and not really even mention it too much. But now, even I think with millennials especially, I'm sorry for pointing out a specific age gap, but I think everyone's interested and wants to know more about different cultivars and wines. So yeah, any unusual cultivar sparks the interest, and people want to taste them, and therefore we need to make them as winemakers. So we definitely take our chances. But then again, yeah, just make sure as a winemaker we always do that inspection beforehand. Is your for fit into your brand portfolio? For me, as a small producer, I don't want to make 10 different wines. I'm really focused at the moment on Bordeaux cultivars, especially because of Cabernet. And then we also do the Case Legacy blend with the Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and the Malbec and the Petit and everything going in there. So I hope I answered your question a little bit. I suppose Grenache is still seen like Cabernet and the Malbec as a little bit unusual because we don't see much single wine labels out there, but we might find it more in Shiraz, Viognier, Grenache blends.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would also say that it's quite unusual in South Africa to find a Grenache as a single varietal. And exactly, you know, spot on. You would definitely, as you're reading from red blends, you would probably pick it up in a lot of the red wine blends. So very interesting. We unfortunately lost Yvette. I think his cell phone died, so he's just busy plugging in. I'm sure he'll be back soon. And we've got some more comments here. And lovely Mira is saying, such a wonderful initiative. Thank you so much, Leanne, for showcasing our amazing wine industry. Thank you so much, Mira. You've got a heart of gold. And for those of you that don't know Mira, she has done incredible things for the Robertson Wine Valley. So thank you very much to you too. And from, yeah, cheers to that. And Gabby is saying, Salome, how long have you been a winemaker for?
Yeah, I think it's 11 years qualified since 2008 after Alsenberg. But like I said, in between there, I was in the vineyards as a vineyard manager, viticulturist more. And then in 2013, yes, starting on my own as a winemaker. So what makes it now? My 7th vintage at Luzon? I think so.
Yeah, and you're also quite young, and you know, you're also a female too, and that's like, yeah, you know, we've got a young female winemaker and she's doing incredible things. So thank you very much for that. That's incredible. Keep it up.
No, it's awesome to live your dream and your passion, just to show that we can as a woman.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that are watching, you can keep your comments rolling in while we wait for David to join us again. But I'm going to flick up another question now from Alvina. And what would you say is the best way to introduce yourself or someone to unusual variety that if they've never tasted it before? And what would be the best way to get them to try something new?
Sure. I just think, yeah, open mind, open heart. Yeah, that's sort of what sparks me. I'm always interested in tasting new things, but I think if you really want to break it down for someone that needs to, that you want to taste something, is maybe break it down into what the aroma and the sensory science behind it is, you know? Different notes that you can pick up, and maybe, for example, the Cabernet, you get cherry, but you can also get cherry and Malbec. So if you want to break it down more into sensory notes for someone like that to really try it, but I think, yeah, really open mind, because there's over 3,000 different cultivars. So we haven't really scratched the surface, and we chose a small parcel of that we think works in South Africa, but I really think as we see climate change as well, warmer temperatures rising, we might move into more Mediterranean cultivars, that's Martin in Greece, in that area, in the future. So yeah, to introduce people to new wines or new cultivars, unusual wines, I think break it down for them to what they could expect.
Oh, and that's really great, you know, and it's nice that you explain it like that, and open mind, open heart. And I really think that's so special. For someone like me, I would literally just tell them, close your eyes and just drink it and guess what it is, you know.
It's not going to be
so yeah, on the flip side. Okay, and the vet is back. Welcome back to vet. Where did you go? Did your phone die?
Yeah, my phone died, and the only fiber we have on the farm is all bran flakes, so we don't. The internet isn't always that great. So, but I'm back. Good to be back.
Okay, welcome back. I must say, you know, my fiber is also really bad at the moment, so I am also connected to my cell phone. Yeah, something that you can rely on until the battery dies. Oh, shame. Okay, so we've got some cool questions coming in. Okay, this is an interesting one. Any comments on Mourvedre on its own or in a blend?
Sure, maybe the
I worked with Mourvedre when I worked in Wellington. we in those days we didn't call it Mourvedre, we called it Moervrede. So it's quite from a viticultural side, because I started off as a viticulturist in Wellington, and from that point of view, it's a difficult grape to work with because it's very vigorous in its growth, and you really need to try and control that vigor, because it can be very herbaceous and very green in style if you just let it grow wild. But it does make an interesting wine. I don't think it is probably going to get to the extent of Cab Franc or a Carmenere or a Malbec, but in a blend it does work. I've tasted a couple of single variety Mourvedres, which is very interesting, but you need to work it really well in the cellar. Otherwise, it can become very, very, very strong and green in style. But it does bring forth some raspberry characters and notes, and it works really well in a blend. I really enjoy in those days when we had it, I enjoyed working with it.
Oh wow! And it's quite interesting to know that you have worked with the varietal too. And I'm quite a fan of those type of wines. So yeah. Salome, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I didn't. I haven't made wine of Mourvedre in my lifetime. Only worked in the vineyards at Sorensberg. Dierveld uses it in his Provenance blend, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so I wouldn't really go to any more comments on the Mourvedre. I'll stick to the water.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We got another question here from Vanna, and he's saying, De Wet, why has Zinfandel fallen out of favor with local producers? Very few grow it anymore. And I know Blauklippen grows it, but I don't know of anyone else. Maybe you can have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, funny enough, because I worked 2 years in California, it's one of the grapes that I really enjoy, Werner. I love a good Zin, and certainly it's affordable, enjoyable wines when you go to the States. I don't know why it's fallen out of favor. It's such a sad thing that Blauklippen stopped producing it, because I think that was their niche, and if you can get hold of some of the old Blauklippens and Zinfandels, they are just amazing. Lovely wines. It's to me, it really reminds me of some of our Cinsaults. They're not too powerful, not too big, but very, very enjoyable. To answer your question, I don't know why it's fallen out of favor. I think it just needs a marketing drive behind it, to push it, to promote it, because it can be made into really, really enjoyable, nice wines. A lot of it still planted in Wellington. So if you go to the Wellington producers, I'm pretty sure you'll find a nice Zinfandel out there still. Certainly one of my favorite wines, and if you can get hold of an international Zinfandel, my absolute favorite one is Segisio from California. If you can get hold of a Segisio Zinfandel, beautiful, beautiful wine.
Oh, how lucky are you to be able to taste wines internationally? You know, we're still trying to get through the South African ones. It's quite a lot of them, hey?
Yeah, so
Salome, we're going to talk a little bit about your farm and your brand. And I know that you said that your husband farms tomatoes as well. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit more about your farm and what it is you do.
Well, yeah, we actually managed the farm from 2012. My husband started, and then I came on board. He persuaded the owners to make wine. So we, like I said, started with 2 barrels, and then it just grew from there. My husband saw small tanks, about 1,000 liters, from the people we actually knew beforehand in Darling, and yeah, so I was literally part of his tractor shed side. I think it was maybe 4 meters by 6 meters in the cellar space. And so very women friendly, small tanks, everything that I could manage with one extra hand. And then we grew from there. In 2017, the Smuts actually bought the farm. anyone out there knowing the Smuts, they're actually quite big tomato farmers. They've been farming since 1923 in the Robertson Wine Valley. And Granny Kay started it all. She escaped in the First World War from England to Switzerland, Lucerne. So that's where the name came from, fond memories. And when she came back to South Africa, she wanted to farm. Her husband, Sebastian Smuts, actually managed Vergelegen at that stage, and then they bought the first piece of land here. And from there, today, it's the 4th generation of Smuts farming in this whole area. Tomatoes 90%, and the rest is citrus. So the cellar is actually a very small part of that. We have since then expanded the cellar to new premises on the farm, just to a different separate area from the tractors and everything. And they bought a few extra tanks and growing from there. So from 2 barrels, we grew to 40 tons this year, which is exciting. And I hope after this lockdown, we would continue with the role of the bull to make this thing really work, because we're actually still very young in the market.
Oh, what an interesting history as well. And yeah, thanks to your husband for also being there on this journey. What a wonderful man.
Yeah, that's why I said I wasn't fortunate enough to inherit the farm, but I was lucky enough to marry a farmer, and he's quite a driven guy. We call him the bulldozer. So he makes things work, and he really takes my dreams to the next level.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about Nierlingshof.
Well, I'm sitting here in my office in the winery at the moment, and it's very quiet. It's a beautiful farm, and I started working here 17 years ago, and it's all been joy and privilege. So the property is owned currently. It's family owned by a German family, by the Schreiber family. And their grandfather, HJS, as we call him, Hans Joachim Schreiber, bought the property in '85, and he did a lot of work and invested a lot of money in creating the property to what we have, to what you can see here now. We have 125 hectares planted under vines here. And of which Sauvignon Blanc is the most, and then on the white side, and we have Shiraz, Pinotage, Cab, Merlot, Malbec, of course, which we're showcasing tonight, Chardonnay, and a whole lot. I can't probably remember all of them. The beauty is, as I mentioned to you earlier on, when I was studying, I was blessed to have lecturers like Evan Archer, unfortunately passed away last year, David Simon, soil scientist, and Professor Goussard, also another viticulturist, Professor Joel van Wyk. Point that I'm trying to make is when I told them I've been applying for this job, they said to me that if you can't make decent wines on that property, you shouldn't be in the wine industry. So Nierlingshof is really blessed with beautiful terroirs, beautiful soil, and if you utilize what you have and you just channel it into a direction, you can really make some decent wines. And we've been trying to do that. We've been trying to do that for a long time, and I think we've achieved it. And with the help and the vision of the family, investing money and believing in us, and it's been a wonderful ride. And once we can get past this whole lockdown and of course the whole pandemic, I'd like to urge people to come and visit again, and really the doors are wide open. So it's a beautiful place to visit, and we have some okay wine, I guess, for you to try.
Yeah, absolutely. And I bet some of you can't wait for lockdown to finish so that we can stock up on our wine supply again. And I'd just like to also add, Nierlingshof has a beautiful farm estate. They've got some lovely food and wine pairings, and it is often referred to as, the long row of trees that you you drive through to get to the estate. And it's always so nice to drive through and enjoy the food and wine pairing there, and learn some about the stories and the wildlife on your farm too, which is quite interesting. And Salome, I don't know if you've got a tasting room.
No, unfortunately not yet. But I like to do the tastings between the barrels and the tanks at the moment. So it changes every time someone gets here. Wherever there's space, we sort of set up at the moment. Yeah, so one day, hopefully, we've got the view and the dam, but we'll get there, small steps.
Oh, it sounds great. And I really can't wait till lockdown is over so we can be visiting these beautiful farms. You know, we've got Neertlingshof in Stellenbosch, and we've got Luzon in, is it Bonnievale or Robertson?
Well, yeah, more towards Bonnievale, but we're part of the Robertson Wine Valley.
There you have it. So, guys, I'm going to end off now because I'm sure you are hungry and wanting to watch Carte Blanche. I know I
am.
Still got a big bottle to finish.
Yeah, look at that huge bottle that David has. I mean, jeepers, creepers, you know, probably looks even bigger, the angle that you have it now, but it is a Magnum bottle, right?
It's a 3 liter. There you go.
Whee! Okay, yeah, it's nice and big. So thank you very much for joining and for supporting the SA Wine Lockdown hashtag and for giving up your time, especially on a Sunday. We really appreciate it. And I can only wish you the very best for after the lockdown. I hope that you guys that are watching, that you support these guys that are trying extra hard to keep their brand out there during the SA Wine Lockdown. Drink your wine at home, and now you know where to stock up. If you're thinking you need some unusual reds, you know you can go to Luzon and Neertlingshof to stock up on those unique varieties. So thank you very much, guys. Are there any closing thoughts before we end the broadcast?
No, just thank you to you for the initiative, for putting this together. And for meeting the vet this way online.
Thank you, Salome. Yeah, thanks, Leanne, and yeah, let's support the lockdown and let's stay at home and get this thing over and done with, and all be healthy afterwards. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for watching and for your wonderful comments. We really appreciate it. Keep following the SA Wine Lockdown hashtag for more interesting wines that you can enjoy in South Africa. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Bye. Thank you.
Have a good night.